Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 29th of November 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, a big weekend, lots to get through. First thing I wanted to talk about though is this new Omicron variant that, the COVID variant that has been talked about and blamed for, I guess, the weekend weakness across the crypto markets. Now, I think this meme right here that I kind of retweeted perfectly explains what happened, and it's basically the 4chan section biz, and someone's posted, someone in South Africa coughs, and then my finances get obliterated with the Wojak face kind of like screeching there. I thought that was pretty funny. But I also thought it was a perfect summary of what happened, because for those of you who maybe weren't following as closely, essentially there started to be a lot of media attention and, to be honest, pretty much a lot of fear-mongering around this new variant of COVID, and the market sold off, like the stock market, the crypto market, but it didn't sell off like March 2020 or anything like, not yet at least, or anything like that. I think that if we look at this sort of stuff from like a market perspective, markets hate uncertainty, right? Like really hate uncertainty. But the thing is, a new COVID variant isn't going to bring in enough uncertainty for people to kind of do what they did in March of 2020, where we saw obviously a massive sell-off, because everyone knows about COVID now. We know how to deal with it. We have vaccines, all this sort of stuff. So I'm not going to go down kind of like the COVID route. I'm not an expert on that or anything like that. But in the context of the market, I don't know. I just don't see this being any kind of like big deal. And, I saw a few tweets from people who were basically trying to push a bearish narrative, saying, the crypto markets already look bad. We're going to go to not to zero. We're going to go down again. And this kind of like COVID thing's just going to be a nice kind of narrative for people to use, blah, 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 right? I don't really listen to bears generally, because a lot of the time bulls do it too, but like when it comes to Ethereum, bears are reaching when they kind of like try to be bearish on Ethereum. I just see zero reason to be bearish on Ethereum right now, like absolutely none at all. The wider crypto ecosystem, not sure. There are certain sectors that I feel are extremely frothy, like the GameFi sector or the metaverse sector. That has gone bananas recently. That's extremely frothy, of course. And there's other sectors that are really, really quiet still, like DeFi, right? DeFi is so quiet. Like, honestly, I am shocked by how badly DeFi tokens have performed. But at the same time, I'm kind of not shocked. I'm shocked to an extent, but at the same time, I kind of expected it, because I've said for a while now that I think anything competing with ETH post 1559 is going to have a real tough time doing so, for all the reasons I've outlined as to why ETH is going to accrue value, why ETH is valuable, and all that sort of stuff in the past. So that doesn't surprise me. But at the same time, they're even like DeFi tokens are even really weak against USD. And I'm not talking about like the smaller tokens, the unproven product tokens that are kind of tied to unproven products. I'm talking about the household names, right? We all know the MKR token performs extremely poorly. We all know that Wi-Fi has been performing extremely poorly. But even, the household names like Uni and Aave, and the ones that people are were really bullish on, performing poorly. And the thing is, like a year ago, even maybe a bit more than a year ago, if you had told people, like during the middle of like the DeFi bull run, if you had told people that some of these DeFi tokens would still be down 80 to 90% against USD a year later, and some of them down 90+% against ETH, people would have called you crazy. Because I remember back then, all of us people that were kind of like big on ETH were kind of saying, well, we do believe that a lot of this value is going to flow to ETH. Like a lot of the value being generated by DeFi is going to flow to ETH, and we do believe ETH is the best long-term hold. And that was based on all the kind of like factors that we've talked about for years now. And at the time, that was an unpopular opinion, believe it or not, especially mid-2020. It was a very unpopular opinion to say that ETH was going to accrue all this value. And I think ETH was only around $300 back then as well. But then, obviously, over the last 18 months, the narrative has changed absolutely completely. It's actually wild how much it has changed. So that's basically feeds into my reasoning around why I can't be bearish on ETH. Like, I know I'm a permabull, but if I feel the market getting like super frothy, I can generally kind of formulate a bear thesis in my head, at least for the short term. Basically, going from, okay, well, there's a lot of leverage in the market. The market's been frothy for quite a while without a big pullback. People are making really like, stupid easy money on ETH. Maybe ETH due for a pullback, but I don't trade anything like that. I don't give advice on that. I don't even try to pay attention to any of that. It might just be sometimes it catches me, but I'm not feeling that at all right now. I mean, ETH has been kind of going sideways, meandering around these kind of like price points. It went to new all-time highs, of course, but it didn't really do much past that. Now, if ETH had like doubled in a month to like 10K, I would be like, okay, well, that's a pretty quick price movement. We may expect a kind of like pullback here, and that's what happens with a lot of the other tokens, by the way. Like they'll go up really quickly, but they'll also go down pretty quickly as well. But then the worst thing that happens for people, I think, is that they end up holding these tokens for the longer term, and they don't realize that these things can go down 90% within a few months, and against USD, not even counting against ETH. And a lot of the participants trading these things, if the macro kind of environment is still bullish, they're not going to exit crypto. They're going to just exit into least less risky assets, and that's why ETH outperforms most things. And Bitcoin to an extent as well. People consider Bitcoin to be less risky, of course, but obviously, I'm much more bullish on ETH. That kind of like feeds into the reason why I think that this COVID stuff is just a nothing burger. I mean, not in terms of like the severity of the variant. I have no idea about that. I'm talking about for markets. I just don't think it's going to have any kind of like long-term, not even short-term effect or anything. Like we saw a bit of a dump, and really that was like a Tuesday for crypto. It wasn't even anything to scoff at. I don't see a repeat of March 2020. No way. That would be in my eye. I mean, I think that's impossible at this stage because what happened in March 2020 was basically the markets got hit by a black swan event where no one appreciated just how much uncertainty COVID would bring, and no one had any idea about what COVID was back then. We didn't know kind of like how many people it would kill. We didn't have vaccines. We didn't know what would happen around the world. And then over the last, I guess more than 18 months now, the world has kind of accepted it, and we've learned to live with it. Regardless of anything else, it's just a way, it's just a thing that exists now. No one is uncertain about it. Anytime anyone hears anything about COVID, it's kind of like, oh, okay, COVID again. But of course, like when there's a new variant and people and the media is trying to fearmonger by saying, this is, super, it spreads much easier. It's got a much higher transmission rate. It may evade vaccines. We don't know any of that information for sure, but the media loves to kind of push these narratives. Of course, there's going to be a bit of uncertainty, and there may be opportunists, especially over the weekend where liquidity is lower, trying to cause a bear kind of like narrative to play out. And that's just the way the kind of markets work, right? You actually can't trust anyone. That's, I don't give investment advice, but if I was to give like one piece of kind of like, I guess, life lesson for markets in general, not just crypto, but anywhere, you can't trust what anyone says. Like, don't trust anyone. Don't follow people into trades. Don't try and copy trade them. Don't, like, really, because most of the time, or, there might be some people that are good actors, but most of the time, these people just aren't. They're just kind of like pushing a narrative, trying to pump their own bags, and then you end up being exit liquidity for them. So yeah, but related to what I was kind of like saying about ETH performing like really well and continuing to perform really well, I put out this tweet today where I said, some people are confused about why ETH has been so resilient and is outperforming BTC. Maybe it has to do with the fact that over 1 million ETH that would have gone to miners and sold has been burned in 115 days. Oh, and an 80 to 90% issue introduction is coming next year. Probably nothing. So, I mean, you guys know this. You guys watch the burn like I do. You guys pay attention to all of this sort of stuff happening. You guys know about the issuance reduction. But there are still people out there, and I've seen a lot of traders just in disbelief. Because, as I've said before, they expected ETH to bleed against Bitcoin in Q4. A lot of people took this trade, and it's a very popular trade to take because there's 6 years worth of precedent saying that it would play out. But it didn't play out. It's not playing out. ETH is gaining on BTC, which is completely counter to that precedent. And that's very strong from a market perspective. But my tweet here only captures a very small part of why people want ETH. Think of all the other stuff going on in the Ethereum ecosystem, guys, like the layer 2 stuff, the continued growth of DeFi, NFTs, DAOs. I mean, everything, all the buzzwords that I've said a million times. Like, I feel like people, for some reason, are still confused, and I don't get why. Like, are they just not paying attention to what Ethereum is doing? These are genuine people, by the way. These aren't just like, maximalists of another chain who don't care about Ethereum and don't want to learn about it. These are genuine people who may or may not be paying attention, or who just like haven't accepted the fact that I feel like the market, not just the market, but like the crypto dynamic has changed completely, where essentially it's gone from like Bitcoin leading over past bull markets to ETH leading, and ETH has led this entire market up. ETH has not only led as an asset against in bringing the market up, but it's also led on every other front that I just mentioned, and by far. And as I mentioned before, even with the gas fees being high and all these kind of like opportunistic other layer ones preying on that, they're still talking about Ethereum. Like literally everyone all day, every day is talking about Ethereum, talking about ETH. I mean, that in of itself is just amazing. Like I used to say during the bear market that Bitcoin maximalists talking about ETH every day, whether that was to FUD it or, I mean, they never really said anything good about it. It was mainly just to FUD it. That was amazing because what that does is it exposes their entire audience to ETH and Ethereum. So you know, I've used this example before, but imagine you have an audience of 10,000 followers, and imagine if only 100 of those, right, aren't kind of like a maximalist like you. They're just following you because for whatever other reason, and then you've just kind of like talked about Ethereum all this time, and they're probably like, okay, well, what is this Ethereum thing? I need to dive deeper into it. That's a potential like 100, maybe even more people that have gotten exposure to Ethereum that maybe otherwise wouldn't have, just because you're talking about and hating on it. And the same goes for everything, not just Ethereum. Like, you know, this is actually a big reason why I don't publicly talk about a lot of other kind of like ecosystems, because a lot of them to me are just kind of like short-term opportunistic things. Like not everyone, but a lot of them are. So I don't really like to talk about them publicly because I know that I'm literally giving them free marketing. So I'm smart enough not to do that. But a lot of these other people, they just aren't. So it's just amazing to me that people are still confused why why ETH is kind of leading the market. It's because Ethereum is literally on everyone's mind. And you know, even last weekend with the drama around Suzu and Avalanche and Ethereum and all that, the whole weekend, literally, I didn't see anyone talking about Bitcoin. It was literally just Ethereum killers, high fees, all that sort of stuff. Bitcoin wasn't even in the conversation. So when you look at that, and it wasn't just in the Ethereum bubble, this was across all of crypto Twitter. That tweet from Sue got a lot of attention. So when you look at that, you kind of think to yourself, well, it's just a no-brainer as to why ETH is continuing to outperform. It has all the attention, literally all the time. And I've spoken about attention before in crypto and how I think it's the most important resource and scarce resource, and Ethereum has it. Like, I mean, if attention is a scarce resource, it doesn't seem like it is for Ethereum. And I made a video on that and posted it on Twitter a few weeks ago. But yeah, that's kind of like always been amazing to me how that all plays out. But in terms of like, you know, the ETH being burned, I mean, Data Always put out a great tweet here, basically saying, I wonder why Bitcoiners have been especially toxic lately. And this is a chart showing the existing supply of ETH tokens, and then the existing supply of ETH tokens plus burn tokens. So if we hadn't burned ETH starting on August 6th up until now, the ETH supply would have gone from 117 million ETH to 118.5 million ETH. But because we burned over a million ETH, the ETH supply has only grown from 117 million to 117.5-ish million. So there is obviously a million there that is completely gone, and that is obviously playing into why ETH is performing so well as well. I think that's a big reason, to be honest. Like, I think what people ended up doing is overestimating the short-term impact of EIP 1559. They thought it was just going to like double the price of ETH, and underestimating the long-term impact. The long-term impact is that we essentially have this kind of like reverse gravity on ETH's price, that every time it drops, right, there's just so little supply on like actively traded, and there's so much active supply being burned that there's this reverse gravity that just like keeps pulling ETH up over time, right, over the long term, regardless of anything else. This is just 1559. This has nothing to do with staking or using ETH as kind of like money, or using ETH in DeFi, or kind of like just buying ETH as a store of value. That's all completely additive to this, and has nothing to do with the issue introduction that's coming either, which is gonna, I mean, if the EIP 1559 is kind of like a form of gravity, I mean, I don't even know if this is a thing, but the issue introduction is like ultra gravity, right? Playing off the ultrasound money meme. It's going to be worth so much more for Ethereum than 1559 did. And this chart is literally going to start going down. This blue part of the chart is going to start going down, which is crazy to think about. So that, you know, that's obvious to me there. And then, of course, the layer 2 stuff feeding into Ethereum. You got Polynya here, who had a great tweet. They said, roll-up centric Ethereum is Arbitrum, Aztec, Boba, Cartesi, Diversified, DYDX, Fuel, Hubble, Immutable X, Loopring, Metis, Nami, Optimism, Polygon's Nightfall, Hermes and Maiden, Reddit, SoRare, StarkX, Starknet, Zico, Opru, ZK Swap, ZK Sync, WorldCoin, many more to come, with Celestia, Polygon Avail, ZK Porter, and Ethereum. This is the ETH layer 2 ecosystem today. We have so much more coming than just this. These are all kind of like standalone L2s that are either live or coming soon, which, I mean, I put a comment here where I said I'd be scared if I was any L1 trying to compete with this ecosystem. Because as I've said before, They are not competing with Ethereum layer 1. That game is over. There is no way they are ever going to be able to be a more decentralized and secure settlement layer than ETH layer 1. Even if they, do what Ethereum did, which is obviously not sacrifice decentralization for scale, there is so many other things to go into that. It takes a long time, and Ethereum is a moving target. Ethereum is always getting more decentralized over time. Over the longer term. And then and that's why these L1s, or these kind of like L1s that build themselves as more scalable, are competing with the L2 ecosystem, which again, in my eyes, is a completely losing battle. These L1s, they're not even good execution layers in my eyes. I believe that ZK rollups are going to be the long-term, the best execution layers. I'm talking like maybe long-term, maybe 5+ years out, but optimistic rollups today are amazing execution layers, better than these other L1s. And then you have like the hybrids like Volition and ZK Porter and things like that as well. So I legitimately, I didn't just say this to shitpost. I would actually be scared. If I actually cared about growing my platform, if I was an L1 kind of like team or founder, and I didn't just care about money, I would look at this and be like, okay, well, what's our response to this? Because this is a threat. Like when you do like a business analysis of kind of like, your weaknesses, strengths, opportunities, threats, there's this massive thing in the threat section, layer 2 Ethereum, and you have to deal with that. You can't just ignore it. And I've already seen a few things playing out where people are like, oh, layer 2 isn't exclusive to Ethereum, it's fine, our chain's going to have L2. And then it's kind of like, why would any L2 choose to settle on your chain over Ethereum? There is literally no reason to do that. Ethereum is the most decentralized and secure settlement layer by far. So why would an L2 want to outsource its security to kind of like a really insecure and not decentralized L1? Doesn't make any sense, right? So that narrative is going to fail in terms of kind of like getting traction. In terms of spreading a kind of narrative to pump prices and pump tokens, it may succeed because the market can be dumb in the short term. But legitimately would be very scared if I was building an L1. And speaking of L2, L2 Beats updated their website where they actually show a breakdown of the TVL in each of these kind of apps now. So if you go to l2beat.com and you scroll down to the list of apps, you can actually see a breakdown, hover over it, and you can see the breakdown of tokens live on that network. So you can see on Arbitrum, it consists of 54% of ETH, 21% of stablecoins, and about 23% of other tokens. You can see Boba Network here. Boba and OMG account for 45%, ETH 30%, stablecoin 17%. And then there's kind of like DYDX just has stablecoins because it's a perp exchange where stablecoin is the only thing using the whole system. But I thought this was an awesome thing to have here and split out as a breakdown. And obviously color coded, ETH is obviously purple, so you can see ETH pretty much exists on most of these things, which is really awesome to see. I mean, I love the L2B website, as you guys know, and look at that TVL. We're just continuing our march up. It's just like it's just non-stop now, and Boba Network actually rocketed to number 2 because of their token. They're about double away from kind of like flipping Arbitrum. Power of token, guys. I've said it many times before. I mean, you can click into Boba Network and actually see. Look at that. Guess where they added the token? I just give you one guess, right? I mean, obviously you can guess here. So that's been really awesome to see them continuously update this website. But yeah, I think that's enough on kind of like the L2 ETH price side and everything happening there. I always think it's good, and I know I repeat myself a lot on the refuel, but I mean, it's hard not to on a daily show. But I always think it's good to repeat myself and to repeat things, because if I just say something once, you're probably not going to retain it. You're probably not going to learn, and you're probably not going to kind of like have that new knowledge. And that's just how I actually learn. And that's why I love doing the shows, because I get to repeat myself a lot of times, and that just kind of like keeps it fresh in my memory and keeps me on my toes about things. So definitely, if you don't mind me repeating stuff, then that's great. You'll learn better. But if you do, I think it works as a better way to keep learning. But anyway, I'm going to stop it there and move on to some merge updates. So first screenshot in a while we've got here from Adrian Sutton, who works as a protocol engineer at Consensus. This screenshot is the Teku plus Geth going through the merge with the new Python spec. And unlike Amphora, this isn't a proof of concept code. We're building this for production. Lots more to do yet, but what's there is top quality. So yeah, I mean, you guys remember these screenshots that I was showing during that merge interoperability week. The Kintsugi DevNet effort is still going on. There is now a target for mid-December to have that long-lived DevNet up during the holidays. So that's going to be really cool to see how that plays out and see how that goes. There's been DevNets and testnets that have been broken before, which is good. Like, it's good that we break things. We obviously want to break things as much as possible and get to a point where something can't actually be broken. That's obviously the end goal here. But yeah, this is, I think, milestone 3, which is what they hit earlier this week. And there's 6 milestones. I think they're going to be milestone 4 this week and possibly 5. And then obviously 6 leading into mid-December when we can get like that longer-lived DevNet up and running throughout the holidays. And in other merge news, Peter from the Geth team announced that they've merged into Go Ethereum Master 2 gigantic prep works for the merge. The last outstanding huge pull request is the beacon sync, and then it's testing and party time. So the ETH1 side is making amazing progress at the core development level, and I guess execution layer side, we can call it as well, which is amazing to see. You know, the funny thing is you don't hear about the merge for like a few weeks, and then like there'll be kind of like come a time where you hear about it all at once, and then you won't hear about it for a little while, then you'll hear about it all at once. Progress is still being made, guys. Like, all this stuff is happening in the background. I haven't spoken about it for a little while because there hasn't been really any major updates, but it's like suddenly and then kind of like all at once, right? Slowly, then all at once, which is exactly what we want to be seeing from the merge work, which is awesome to see. Next up is this website that I came across during the week called ethtps.info. I think I saw this shared in the Discord channel, so thank you to whoever shared it there. I somehow missed this. But essentially what this website shows is Ethereum, L2s, and sidechains, and their TPS, their max recorded TPS, and their theoretical max TPS. So you can see here right now, ETH is doing about 21.8 transactions per second. Its max recorded TPS was 104. I think that this happened really early on because the funny thing is, in theory, you can see here, ETH can do up to 1,428 TPS because if the whole network, if the whole block is only full of the cheapest transaction on ETH, then it's going to give you more TPS. But because we have more complex transactions happening and all that sort of stuff, it doesn't do that. So that's why you're seeing these numbers here. And some of these numbers might be wrong as well. Just take them with a little bit of a grain of salt. But then you can see Arbitrum and Optimism, 0.04 TPS, 0.2 TPS. Their ecosystems are still super young, not at anywhere near limits yet. Max recorded TPS on Arbitrum is 49, Optimism 3.8. And then theoretical, 40,000 and 20,000. Again, I don't know how accurate that is. I've seen quotes from the teams of up to like a few thousand TPS on here. I don't know if they could get to 40 or 20,000 without kind of like all the activity on there just being the simple sense, right? The simple kind of like transactions, which it probably does take into account that. And then you can see a list of the other kind of like L2s and side chains and all that sort of stuff there and what they're all capable of. So really cool little site here. And you can see like the historical TPS distribution as well. So yeah, I mean, see, this is kind of like, that's weird. Polygon is back in 2015 or 2016. I don't think Polygon was live back then. I think this chart might be broken, but I think this site's is still very early in its life. So I'm looking forward to seeing this be developed further. All right, so the next round of voting to getting Uniswap on Polygon is live now at Snapshot. So if you are a Uni token holder or if you have delegated to someone who's a Uni token holder, you can check this, which you can vote on this. And it's another consensus check of should Uniswap V3 be deployed to Polygon. Now, you'll see the current results here. This only went live before, but you can see the current results here that there's a no vote of 500,000 Uni and only 13,000 Uni is yes. Well, that's because there's only one no vote, and that no vote is 500,000 Uni coming from T11S.Ethia. Some of you may know this person from Twitter, Transmissions, works on, I think, works at Rari Capital. They've voted no. Some people were kind of like saying that they voted no because they have a conflict of interest because they work on optimism stuff. I don't know if I buy that, but this is one reason why I kind of like don't hate on-chain governance for applications, but kind of like not a fan is because people can just vote like no or yes or whatever without giving an explanation. I would love for people to give the explanation here. I would love to know why T11S voted no with such a powerful stake. I mean, this isn't the Uni that they own, of course. This is the Uni that's been delegated to them, but I would just love to know why they voted against it. But yeah, if you have Uni or if you've got a delegate that you have delegated to, definitely encourage them to vote yes on this because I think after this, this is the final consensus check to get Uniswap on Polygon. And I think once this kind of like this passes, we should see more movement here of getting it onto Polygon, which would be really cool to see. So, Tornado Cash has posted a blog post of a proposal to deploy to Arbitrum. So, as Tornado Cash is now a DAO with tokens where people vote on and everything like that, it's a proposal, so they can't do it themselves. It's just a proposal to the community to get Tornado Cash onto Arbitrum, which in my mind, is an absolute no-brainer. Tornado Cash is an amazing tool, amazing privacy tool, and getting it everywhere. I mean, I think it's on some other networks as well. I think it's actually on BSC, funny enough, but getting it everywhere is the top priority. So yeah, good to see them kind of put forward a proposal to get this live on Arbitrum. You can go check this blog post out. It'll be linked in the YouTube description. So an interesting tweet from Mark Cuban here, replying to someone who I think he was replying to this guy, Stephen Deal, and you can see I've blocked this person because this person is just an absolute troll when it comes to crypto. Some of the worst takes that I've ever seen. But Mark Cuban responded to them, kind of like talking about what smart contracts enable, what crypto enables, all this sort of stuff. And then someone asked him, someone called Agnost here, asked him, please show us the business case for decentralized applications that isn't tied to gambling or illegal activities. If you have a legitimate use case where a DApp would be the best solution out of all the alternatives, please lay it out for us. And then Mark Cuban quote tweeted this by saying, sure. I call my bank for a loan. I want to borrow 5K against the 10K I have in a multi-year CD. It takes some paperwork, a phone call to a few days. I go to Aave.com where I have 10K in ETH. I want to borrow 5K. It takes me about 2 minutes and it's done. This is obviously an elementary example of what DeFi enables, but I think it's a really great one because it just so clearly shows what the kind of like difference is between the existing financial system, the traditional system, and DeFi. The existing system, opaque, closed, cumbersome, takes forever to do anything. The new system, do it all yourself, takes 2 minutes, right? And okay, people think, oh, the gas fees. It doesn't, like, layer 2 is going to fix the gas fees, guys. It's fine. And I mean, looking at gas right now, look at this. It's really cheap right now. So if you want to do any transactions, it's at like 60 Gwei. Maybe it's not going to be at 60 when you watch this, but essentially, this is just like the perfect example of what we're enabling with this technology. And it goes obviously so much further than this. But if anyone can't see the value prop, they're either being willfully ignorant, not open to new ideas, or maliciously ignorant and don't want this to succeed because they have a stake in the centralized world. We've seen this play out before from like the Web 2 developers who see kind of like this stuff and probably think to themselves, well, okay, if this actually does work, it could disrupt our entire business. And instead of joining the movement, instead of kind of like embracing it, they kind of like rally against it, which is fine. I mean, it's happened plenty of times in the past. It will keep happening plenty of times into the future. But it's great to have an ally like Mark Cuban on our side because look at the engagement that this tweet gets. 17,000 likes, 2,500 retweets, and Mark Cuban has 8.5 million followers. So he's been a great kind of like ambassador for the crypto ecosystem. And I think it's because he knows what being, early to technology represents and how a lot of the early technologies are always called like a scam, or they're called kind of like they're only used for kind of criminals, blah, blah, all this sort of stuff. And you think 12 years on that people would stop saying this, but they don't. And this is why I keep saying to you guys, we're still early, because until I stop seeing these popular narratives be spread, especially narratives around like NFTs and things as well, because think about all the bad NFT narratives, think about how much engagement that gets. Until I see that kind of like shift in the narrative shift and the tone shift around crypto, I'm going to consider us still early, because it means that we still haven't penetrated through kind of like and jumped kind of like into the mass adoption part of the cycle, which we will eventually. And at the point, these people will be the minority, but right now they are the majority, which is crazy to me. And another thing I was kind of like talking to some friends about today is how, unfortunately, what crypto is to most people, and I've discussed this before, but what it is, it's YouTubers shilling them on random coins. It's gambling on random coins on centralized exchanges and never using an on-chain product. It's hearing about the scams all the time because mainstream media is garbage, and it's hearing about the price movements of Bitcoin or ETH going up or down. That's it. That's all crypto is to most people. But you have to dive a little bit deeper. You have to peel underneath the skin to actually see what's there and to actually see the use cases and to see that's not all a scam. You know what it's like for people who don't do this? It's like them seeing Nigerian prince scam emails and that's it. And then they just dismiss the value prop of email because they just get scam and spam emails all the time. Like, that's just dumb, obviously. It's really dumb. And obviously people see the value in email. But early on, a lot of people didn't, right? When it first started kind of like gaining traction. Same is true for crypto. We're going to break through it. Keep the faith. I actually don't consider any of this to be a bad thing. I consider it to be more free marketing for crypto, if anything. But until I notice that narrative shift, until I notice the current majority become the minority, will consider us still early. Even if the prices get much crazier from here, I still consider us to be early to the ecosystem. All right, last tweet here is actually a video from Hideyoshi Moriya. I think that's how you say it. Basically, they're showing a prototype of a car sharing system with an ENS. So this system verifies if you have ownership of an ENS domain, in this example, car1.sharedao.eth, and then unlocks a car door. That's really cool. Like, this is really cool. This is like true Web3 stuff, right? Where basically integrating with kind of like blockchain like Ethereum, integrating with kind of like tool like ENS, and bringing it to the real world. I love this sort of stuff. I always love whenever we blend stuff from the kind of like real physical world into crypto. And that's a big reason why I love NFTs, because it allows us to do a lot of that sort of stuff. And I've shown examples of this before. But yeah, you can go watch this video in the YouTube description if you'd like. But yeah, again, I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.